Welcome to the 12-Step Recovery Evolution podcast. Visit recoveryevolution.co.uk for more episodes, helpful resources and links to our social media. Also visit the site for information on how you can attend a future Zoom session or workshop live. Thank you.
Anyway, so let's get to the big book. So everything I'm actually saying is out of the big book pretty much. Even, when I sort of go off in my stories, it's all really just to try and make the big book a little bit more understanding. But I really believe in this book. I mean, I've got my own faith and I believe in the Bible and I love that. But I really believe in this process because it was the process that was used to one, lead me out of addiction, but two, also help God reveal himself to me, and this was the process that the path that he sent me on. So I really love talking about this book and I really love sharing it with people, and I just want you to know out there that over the years I've felt a little bit persecuted by a lot of the fellowship for believing in God and believing in this process, and I just want to share with you new guys that if you believe in it too and you're excited about it and keen on it, and don't let them make you believe you're a fanatic. Now it doesn't mean some people aren't a bit fanatical about it, and that's not so pleasant, but actually following this process, it's very simple and it's very gentle and it's very beautiful. And I do think because it is so simple that a lot of people do miss it and they go off to do other things that may not work as well or become a little bit more complicated. But there's a simple beauty to this book, but it is something that you have to do. And when you do it, it becomes very profound. I mean, one of the things that you learn when you've been around kind of like spirituality for a lot of years, and I've done, quite a lot of different versions of spirituality. I've done all the Buddhism and Hare Krishnas and 7 different forms of sort of Christianity, and been in meditation centers and ashrams, and traveled around Africa with missionaries and India, and I've kind of sort of been around a bit, and for all of it, you realise that the best understanding and the best teaching is always very, very simple, and very, when you get that simple understanding, that just a profound little nugget of wisdom gives you a great revelation in your own mind. Because if this doesn't have an effect on your life, it's kind of pointless, and knowing it is just not enough. I try and tell people that I think I probably know this book, I know the Bible, I know a lot of teachings more than most because I've really spent a lot of time studying them. But I've learned that knowing it doesn't save me. Knowing this program doesn't give me the substitute for this illness. Knowing this program isn't going to stop me from relapsing, stop me from suffering. I've got just as much chance of relapsing as anybody else in this world if I don't do and follow this program, if I don't get the relief that it promises me. And again, so, I've been to quite a few meetings over the years and talked to a lot of people, and some of them, I don't understand how they stay sober. They just don't do this program. They don't care about God. They don't think you have to, and they seem to be doing all right, and good luck to them. I'm not unhappy about that, but it doesn't work for me. I've really had to do this program. I've found great relief and great comfort in doing this program, and I haven't got anything else. So somebody said, look, drop all that God stuff, drop the big book, drop the Bible. I've got nothing else. And for me, I know that means that I'm going to go to insanity, I'm going to go to prisons, and I'm going to go to death without this program. So we were looking at on awakenings last week, and we've not really got off the first little bit of on awakening in the morning, but I wanted to show us that there's a reason for doing all of that. And so we've gone back a little bit in the book into how it works, and yesterday we looked at the fact that we realise that this thing called self, this self-consciousness, this is the root of all of our problems and our troubles and our suffering. So it's being able to identify what that self is. And again, there's nothing better that I've found in all of them other teachings to be able to simply identify self. Now, I always remember, like, in Watford, I think it was George Harrison. He bought a Harry Kushner temple there, just up the road from where I live. So I used to like to go there. Like, you get a lot of free food, which is really nice. And they had these lovely grounds you could hang out in, and it was all pretty cool. But one of the top gurus was coming to town, and they said to me, "You need to meet this guy. You need to meet this guy. He's really got a great understanding of spirituality, and he's like fourth in line to the guy at the top, and all the rest of it." So anyway, he turned up. I met him, and we ended up having good conversations and getting quite close for a week, where he wanted to come to my house and learn about the 12-step program because of some of the background that he had, and that he met a lot of people in that movement that had drug and alcohol problems, that were struggling to get over them. And so he come to my house to sort of do a bit of a big book study for a week, and he said he just wished that more of his disciples would understand the teaching in this book, because he's saying this is like a foundation spiritual teaching. And he said a lot of people that can get up that ladder into the higher spiritual stuff but have no real foundation. And he got to know some of the people in our group in recovery, and he said how impressed he was that he could see that they had a good foundation. He said they didn't know much about the super spiritual stuff, but he said they all had a great foundation, which he was a bit envious of. So this is this is about getting a good foundation in your life. It's not the be all and the end all. I found that. I don't think that, I'd be here today if I just did this. I had to go and find other things as well as, not as instead of. And so just wanted to lay a little bit more foundation about, what we're actually looking for in that meditation in the morning, when we're on doing the on awakening, we're considering our days, we're considering our plans for the day, and we're asking God to direct our thinking. And there's a purpose for that. And again, I think we talked about that. This is just a vehicle. It's not really the destination. But if we don't get in the vehicle, you're not going to get to the destination. So we was just looking at page 62 yesterday, and we got to the end of that where it talked about that triumphant arch for which we were passed to freedom. And then on page 63, it says, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we become less and less interested in ourselves. Now, if that self, this unhealthy self, is the thing that we're trying to identify, to root out and be rid of, even like Simon, I think, talking there about doing his fourth step. Doing the fourth step is like the beginning of looking at the pile of carnage behind us, but we're using that to try and learn what self has done for us. That's kind of like the fruit of self, and how we can identify this self and be rid of it. Because when we talk in terms of self and ego, I think it can be a bit difficult to see, what they're talking about. It's like 1 minute they're saying find yourself, and then they're saying die to yourself. And it actually is two kind of selves that we're kind of talking about. And so this self that is talking about in this big book is kind of like that lower-minded self. It's this very selfish, self-centered, self-pitying, self-seeking version of ourselves. And you know why so many of us hate ourselves? And I'm pretty sure if I ask everyone to put their hand up, who in their life has hated themselves, who probably don't really like themselves, and who struggles with themselves. And the thing is, it's not yourself that you hate. It's this lower self that you hate. We even hate being alcoholics. We even hate being drug addicts. We hate the behaviours. We hate living like that. We hate the way we feel about ourselves. But that's not really who we are. This is the lower self that we hate. And it's trying to get this new identity of this higher self, this self of who we really are. It's like that's not who we are. It's like we're not the darkness, but we've been living in the darkness. Now the darkness, again, I like what it says in the Bible. We've been studying it lately. It says the darkness cannot comprehend the light. The darkness cannot understand the light. So when you're in the darkness, you can't understand the light either. And so the light has come into the darkness to draw men and women out of the darkness into the light. And you know that when you're coming into the light, because you're becoming conscious, like it says, we become conscious. And that becoming conscious or coming to, because this is still step 2, really, that we're becoming conscious. It's like we've been knocked out and we're waking up. And we're starting to have this realization of what we've never known before, and this new self starts emerging from us. That's what we've all discovered, the people in long-term recovery, that in the early days you're like, I don't know who I'm going to be. It even says you feel like you're going to be the hole in the donut, that the you that you know and the you that you think is yourself is no longer going to exist anymore, and people can be afraid to let that go, because the ego doesn't like that when you're trying to let go, and that self is the self that needs to die. It needs to die, and the way that self dies is that we starve it. We start to starve it. Look, everything in this world that you starve, whether it's an engine you starve from petrol, or a plant that you starve from light or food, or a river or an ocean. If you starve an ocean from water, it'll start to die. Whatever we don't feed in this world starts to die. So this is asking us to stop feeding that self. And as we stop feeding that self, we start dying to that self. And sometimes in AA we talk about, you stop feeding the black dog and start feeding the white dog. That the black dog's this horrible dog that just bites you and is horrible. But if you stop feeding it, you start starving it. And that's kind of what it's asking us to do with this idea of self. So when you're actually feeling like you hate yourself, and I've never met anybody ever in recovery that doesn't really have a low self-worth, a low trying to think of an easy way of saying it, a very low self-opinion. And but it's that self that we got that opinion about. It's not really who we are, and that's why we have this battle with ourself all the time. And again, that should become more clearer as you go along on this journey, that most of them uncomfortable feelings you got are actually yourself. And but there's different parts of yourself, and there's a part of yourself that you've not fully experienced yet. And it's what this program's saying is, look, if you get in this vehicle, it's going to take you to this new destination, and what you're going to discover is your true self. This person that's not shrouded in all of this negativity and sickness and fear and anxiety and worry. We're going to get all that shit off of you, because it's like being buried alive. It's like being buried alive when you've got all that addiction on you and all of that negativity and depression and fear and shame and guilt. And it stops you from living the life that I believe God intended you to live. So I'm going to ask that question just to make sure that we're all clear, that when it says we sincerely took such a position, if anybody got the answer, if you stick your hand up, and maybe Fox can unmute you and you can give us the answer. So when it says we sincerely took such a position, what is it talking about? Anybody got the answer? You should all have the answer. I think Adam there was a.
I suppose putting God first and everything, but I think the way that we do that is through putting the
Sorry,
program
mate,
first,
can't hear.
isn't it? You know, through the inventory, through everything that you're talking about.
I can't hear you, Adam.
Oh, one sec. One sec. Is that better?
Say it again then.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better, yeah.
I said that it's putting God first. But for someone like me, undisciplined and all that gear that we have, it's the program, isn't it? You know, it's on awakening, the inventory, the willingness to follow the corrective measures. Through me doing that, that's me sort of putting God first. Like you said, that's the vehicle that allows me to experience myself and God. So that's the answer I'd say.
Yeah. Thank you. It is. That's right. Bang on. So it's what it's saying is, as we go back in that bit, it's about we're trying to get this new relationship. You know, remember we talked about getting a divorce from following self all the time. You know, doing what self wants us to do all the time. Because self, like your ego, the trouble with it is it's not necessarily a bad part of you. It's just a part of you that's gone far beyond its intended purpose. That's my belief. But it only wants to get you out of problems in the next 30 seconds. So if you're having drug withdrawals, it knows, take some drugs. That's the quickest way to get out of this problem. You know, if somebody's upsetting you, get angry at them or try and oppress them's the quickest way out of this problem. See, self's just always going to offer you the simplest solution for you to overcome the problem. It has no long-term goals. There's no long-term strategy. It's all about the next 15 seconds. And it never considers anybody else. So if you've been living in this selfish existence, behaving selfishly with everyone around you, then you're just not going to have good relationships. Good relationships are not formed on selfish people. It just doesn't work that way. And so he's saying we're getting this new relationship where we're going to try and put self back a bit, and we're going to put this new idea, this new teaching, these new principles, we're going to put them first, because this is step 2. So this is all the build up to step 3. This is all the build up to step 3. So he's saying when we sincerely took such a position, and again, there's stuff like sincerely. So, you know, I think even when people don't understand the program, they're not intentionally not doing this. They don't really know. And that's kind of why I'm trying to labour it out a little bit with you guys, is to say, look, you need to know what you're supposed to do. And when you do it, it says, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. So if remarkable things aren't following your decisions at the moment, then you're probably not actually doing what this is asking. And it said we had a new employer, being all powerful. And, you know, I've always looked at it like that way, you know, you know, I've accepted God into my life. I accepted God early on in the program. And to the best of my knowledge, I've tried to put that idea first, you know, when I kind of want to do this. And I think God's trying to tell me that. And, you know, I seek God and I seek this idea. I speak to other spiritual people and say, what do they think I should be doing? And, you know, because I believe in the group conscience, you know, not them things that we do in meetings where everyone just gives their opinion that we call group consciences, because I don't see God expressing himself much in them. I just see everyone else expressing their opinions. A proper group conscience is where we kind of seek what God would want us to do, and we let him speak through us in a group conscience. So, you know, I have people in my life that when I ask them, you know, what do you think about this, or can I run something by you? I'm asking for a group conscience. I'm asking for God to express himself through them, because that's the authority that I like to put over my life. That's the authority. That's the power that's greater than myself, because I need to find that power greater than self to overcome that self. If that power's not there, then self rules, and then I start doing what self wants me to do, and I start trying to satisfy the lusts of my flesh, and I start going looking for relief rather than following this spirit that's, you know, mostly contrary to flesh, but my flesh is mostly pretty satisfied as well. My life's also pretty satisfied. Just to let you know that, you know, this isn't about you being unsatisfied. This is about you being satisfied. I don't know many people that are satisfied doing what they want. Again, it's one of the groups that I kind of do. I like to say, who's always done what they want? Put their hand up. Everyone puts their hand up. Whose mum always says they always do what they want? They put their hand up. And then I say, who's got what they want? And nobody puts their hand up. So, you know, this doing what you want really doesn't satisfy you anyway. And, you know, what this program's saying, and I think this idea of God is saying, look, you're going to be more satisfied going down this path than doing and then them other paths. And, you know, I think as you start to trust that, you start believing God is good, I'm not going to get less by following this idea of God. My life isn't going to become worse practicing this program. You know, there's nothing I've ever done in this program that's made my life worse. It's actually always improved my program. So it says we had a new employer, being all powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. And again, that's kind of saying the way we keep close is, you know, through that on awakenings and that asking, what do I do here? You know, speaking to other people, just trying to practice our program. And as he said, established on such a footing, we become less and less interested in ourselves. And that's always going to be a good thing, because remember that being self-conscious is the root of suffering. When I'm in that self-consciousness, I'm always going to be listening to myself. And then, I mean, look, I know now that whenever I'm suffering, it's because I'm in self. But I know, oh, I'm in self, get back into spirit. And so it's a good, then you can expect that, you know, established on that footing, we become less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs, and we become more and more interested in seeing what we can contribute to life. So our mind starts to open, you know, that all of that negativity comes off us. You can expect some creativity to come back into you. You start noticing things that you like, the things that you want to do, things that you want to do with your life. You know, people say, look, I really want my life back. And it's like, well, this is how you get it back. The ECR, I love saying to people that our job is to give you a life-changing experience. That you've come here to change your life. And we've got everything you need so that you can get a new life. One that you can choose. The one that you want, the one that's coming from your innermost self. That place of, you know, where you begin, where the creativity, where you're in union with God, that you can come back into being part of creation instead of being part of destruction. When you're in addiction, it's just very destructive, isn't it? Especially where relationships are concerned, and that's where we find most of our joys, most of our pleasures, especially the older that you get. You know, I think that you realise that relationships are the most wonderful things to have. They can be very difficult and they're fraught with danger and hurt, but, you know, as we go along and try building them relationships, that they just get better and better, and they become the most precious gifts that we have in life. And it says, more and more we become interested in life, in seeing what we can contribute to life, as we felt new power flow in. I mean, that's just amazing, isn't it, to think that there's this higher power. And again, if they brain scanned you, they'd be able to see your brain opening and this light start coming into your mind. You can actually see this new power flowing in as your mind opens. and you become inspired, and you start getting excited about life and what to do. It says, as we felt new power flowing, as we enjoyed peace of mind. Oh, do you know what? That's so nice. When you've had such a tormented mind like mine, just to have a bit of peace and just know, oh, it's just quiet and it's just nice, and you become satisfied with just simple things. And there's not that massive demand on your life, where you just can relax and just have some gratitude and just sit there with that inner smile, thinking about this new peace and being grateful for it, because knowing that not many people have it. I love it when I go to bed at night, and I never take for granted that nice, warm, safe bed. Not everybody has that in this world. Not everybody has that safe bed. So I love to get into bed and just feel grateful and say a prayer for all the people that haven't got that blessing of a nice, warm, safe bed that I can just relax in and go. So it's a real blessing in life. And just so many things that you can become grateful for. As we discovered we could face life successfully, as we become conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. I mean, you just read this book, it's just so mind-blowing, especially, for somebody like myself that's down the road, and this is all part of my life. This has all come from my life. And because I've tried to follow this path. And, that facing life successfully, just when things start working out instead of always going wrong. And it's hard to trust that. It's hard at the beginning to trust things are going to work out. It's not all going to, the rug's not all going to be pulled out from under you. Don't get me wrong. There's been some pretty tough patches in my recovery, and some mental illness to work through, and depressions and anxieties. And I'm not 100% clear of all of that. I still have me struggles, but again, without this God, without this program, and without this process, I don't know where I would be. But I managed to get to the other side, and when I look back, I managed to live. It's one of the important things. Even like I think the Queen said it in her speech. I respected that she sort of said that that when you look back at this time and going through all of this, how do you want to see yourself? Who do I want to be? And I have that in my own mind, that when I'm going through stuff, it's like, who do I want to be now? Who do I want to look back, and, what kind of a person do I want to be going through what I'm going through at the moment? And through the grace of God and this program and the support of a lot of other people, I get to be who I choose to be most of my life. Not what some disease decides for me to do. And I don't have to be subject to that mental illness. I don't have to be subject to that addiction. I don't have to be subject to the darkness. I like to be subject to the light. I like to follow the light. And so it says we become conscious of his presence. Now remember, that's the goal. The overall goal to this is that, as it's saying, we're becoming conscious. We're becoming conscious of God and his presence in ourselves by removing all these defects of character. It says we lose that fear. And again, we can go on talk a lot about fear, but we won't, because I know the time's ticking by. Of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. It says we were reborn. And so I'm going to stop there, but I'm just going to say a little bit of homework for tonight is if we could all have a read of this page 63 based on what we've been talking about. And it says there's this prayer. It says, now, this is the third step prayer. It says, now we're at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee to build me and do me as thy will. Relieve me of this bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I help by thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We fought well before taking this step and making sure that we were ready and could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. So maybe you guys, on the strength of what we're saying, can have a look at that prayer tonight and have a good think about it. Some of you may have done it, but maybe we could do it again tomorrow together, with the understanding of that we want to be free from this bondage of self. Because you're going to find as you go through this program, the whole thing, it just comes down to the same thing. And it is just this simple conscious contact that we keep as we go through our day. It just, the whole thing just comes back to the same point continually. So that's the homework for tonight. Have a look at the step 3 prayer to see if you want to recommit to that, or if you haven't, you want to commit to that we can see what we're looking for, and then and maybe we can carry on in that.